Understanding and applying the chameleon effect is definitely a key secret to accelerating your language learning and unlocking your true potential to achieve a native-like accent in your target languages, even way faster than you might expect. But that's not all. It can also help you get along better with others and become a more effective negotiator, coach, or advisor. Konnichiwa, my fellow language lovers. My name is Tim Keeley, Professor of Cross-Cultural Management. I have spent 50 years of my life learning and using over 30 languages, and I've done a ton of research related to foreign language acquisition and cultural adaptation. And I'm here to share that experience and knowledge with you. The chameleon effect, also known as unintentional mirroring, is the subconscious imitation or mimicking of body posture, hand gestures, facial expressions, accents, word choice, and other behaviors. It often occurs in social situations, and we may not be aware that we are doing it. But don't worry, it is absolutely not the same as mimicry for ridicule to make fun of others. It is the exact opposite of that. This phenomena is believed to contribute to social bonding as it enhances the emotional connections between individuals and increases the friendliness and smoothness of social interaction. So you might be wondering, do people really like such mimicry? Well, in most cases they do, but there are situations in which the result is not so positive as described in this video by Aydin Paladin, a social scientist.
There's actually a very large amount of research that indicates we tend to like being mimicked, and we generally tend to mimic others. I bring this up because the other day, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got up in front of a large group of African Americans when she was suddenly seized by an apparition of Martin Luther King.
There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat.
Perhaps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez imitated the speech patterns of Dr. Martin Luther King without even thinking about it. It could happen naturally as a result of strongly identifying with her predominantly Black audience, but she was widely criticized for doing so. Perhaps it's because Dr. King has a special place in our hearts, and a lot of people will not accept someone mimicking the unique way he spoke. Even though English is my mother tongue, I have mainly spoken languages other than English for the past 49 years. As a result of doing my best to sound like a native speaker in so many languages, it's very difficult for me not to be influenced by the accents and speech habits of the people I'm speaking with. This happens even if our conversation is in English, leaving people wondering where my accent in English comes from. I still remember vividly coming back home to Florida after 1 year in Colombia studying Spanish, French, German, and Portuguese. My mother was so confused and she asked, "Tim, why do you speak English with a Latin American accent?" It was a shock to me too, but I realized that I was still under the influence of the new linguistic and cultural identities that I had just adopted. But with the same technique of mirroring, I soon easily recovered my previous accent and identity in English. There are numerous benefits you can gain from intentional and unintentional mirroring. So let's break it down and see how mirroring is such a strategic tool and how it can benefit you. Have you ever heard of subconscious learning? It's like learning on autopilot. When we subconsciously mimic native speakers, we pick up their speech patterns effortlessly. No more sweating over grammar and sentence structures. That's not all. The act of mirroring improves our pronunciation, intonation, and prosody, making us sound fluent, more like a native speaker, instead of that robotic textbook vibes we often get when starting to learn a new language. Mirroring goes beyond language acquisition. It significantly enriches our cultural behavior. The close intertwining between language and culture means that the chameleon effect enhances our ability to assimilate new cultural behaviors and gestures. This, in turn, empowers us to communicate effectively, not only with the right words, but also with the culturally appropriate body language and nonverbal cues. But have you ever wondered why we want to sound like a native speaker when learning a new language? Two great reasons are to communicate more effectively and fit in better. By imitating the speech and behavior of native speakers, we can be better understood and experience fewer language-related barriers during our interactions. Additionally, by adopting their mannerisms, we increase the chance of being warmly accepted within their social circles. As Nelson Mandela said, if you talk to a man in a language that he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. For example, when I speak a language that's not so often learned by outsiders such as Tamang, I experience great warmth and friendliness. There's an immediate connection, and I often get invited for lunch or dinner. Even if you're monolingual, please don't underestimate the tremendous benefits you can get from strategically practicing mirroring in your daily life. Research suggests that the chameleon effect can positively affect social outcomes, including being liked and getting along better with others. Here are some key studies that have explored this phenomena. You will notice that the people who were mimicked reported liking the interaction more and felt a stronger connection with the mimicker. They were more likely to engage in pro-social behavior, such as helping the experimenter pick up dropped items. They reported feeling more connected to their group and perceived the interaction as more positive. And finally, the positive effects of mimicry were not limited to specific cultural contexts. It also makes you a more effective negotiator. As seen in this study, the individuals who were mimicked during a negotiation task were more likely to come to an agreement and felt more positive about the negotiation process. Let's listen to how former FBI negotiator Chris Voss uses mirroring in hostage negotiations.
Most people, when they think of mirroring, they think mirroring body language, mirroring tone of voice, even using the same word. The mirroring that I teach is much more simplistic and, interestingly enough, has a great impact on how the other person interacts with you. And it's just repeating the last 1 to 3 words that they've said, word for word, 1 to 3 words, or it's repeating a selected 1 to 3 words.
It also makes you a more effective coach or advisor. Let's listen to Benjamin J. Harvey, a well-known educator and coach, on how mirroring improves mentoring.
So one of the quickest ways to build rapport with people is to match their exact words. Actually match the exact words they use. And just by doing that, you'll have an incredible connection with people. Because when people know they've been heard and understood, you've got rapport with that person.
But everybody's not the same. Some people experience the chameleon effect more than others. The degree to which we do so is related to empathy and emotional sensitivity. Highly empathic individuals demonstrate the effect to a much greater extent, such as Sarah Jones, the Tony Award-winning monologuist, whom I mentioned in my previous video about linguistic and cultural identities. She can slip in and slip out of multiple characters. She has mastered the art of mimicking other people's speech habits and behaviors, which is a key factor in achieving a native-like accent. But everything we discuss here, our ability to mimic others in a daily context, highly depends on our language ego permeability, which is the first episode of this Sound Like a Native series I am making right now. So how can we leverage the chameleon effect for language learning? First, interact frequently with a native speaker, or best, immerse yourself in a native speaking environment. The more you engage, the more you will naturally adopt native speech patterns. Actively listen to native speakers in various contexts, such as podcasts, movies, daily conversations. Pay attention to their accents, intonation, and vocabulary usage. Observe body language. The chameleon effect goes beyond speech to include body language and gestures. Notice how native speakers use nonverbal communication and incorporate these elements into your own interactions. Socialize with a variety of native speakers, as different individuals may have distinct accents, dialects, and speech patterns. This exposure broadens your adaptability. Be mindful. While the chameleon effect can definitely be helpful, be mindful of cultural sensitivity and avoid mimicking inappropriate or offensive behaviors. Practice regularly. Consistent practice and exposure are key. Regular interaction with native speakers helps reinforce your mimicry and language skills. But if you're worried that you might never achieve a high level of empathy, as I read in a comment from a fellow member of Polyglot Dreams who deals with past military experiences, here are my words for you. Be patient with yourself. Practice makes perfect, even in the case of empathy. And the more languages that you learn well, the stronger and stronger it will get. And one day you may become a chameleon, figuratively that is. And if you haven't watched these other two videos in the Sound Like a Native series, please do, because the knowledge together becomes a powerful tool to use in your language learning journey. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching and keep on learning. You will be rewarded by amazing experiences and fascinating cultures. It's worth it. See you in the next video.